All right. Welcome all. I am very excited to do this for the very first time. We've never done a session like this. We are talking about domain names today. Now, if you're new to web design, domain names can seem a bit confusing, especially in the beginning, maybe even intimidating. But once you understand the basics and go through the process of connecting one for yourself, you'll realize they're actually pretty simple. And in this session, we're going to cover everything from what a domain is to how to buy one, how to manage one, and how to connect one to a SiteSwan website. As you may or may not know, I'm Justin, one of the co founders here at SiteSwan, and I've connected hundreds of domain names to websites. And collectively, we've helped thousands of sites go live on domains purchased from pretty much everywhere. We know a thing or two about domain names, is what I'm basically trying to tell you. Now, real quick, find the questions tab. It's going to be on the bottom right questions icon. And I'd like you to go ahead and let me know that you can hear me and see me. Now, I'm also kind of curious because for me, I am seeing my video on the bottom left corner overlapping the screen. I'm hearing from others, perhaps you don't see that and you see it next to the screen. So when you say hello in the questions tab, let me know, is it overlapping or is it next to? And I'd really appreciate that. I'm doing something a little bit different today. Let's go. There's 20 of you here. I want some responses. We're all saying next to, next to, next to. Below. Oh, really? All right. Well, you don't need really to see me all that much. I would prefer that you could see the screen, but Ian's saying it's below slash next to. That's interesting. Is it on diagonal? That'd be cool. All right, let's get into it. I appreciate you all. Thank you, Ian, Michael, Wendy, Jason, Eric, Jeffrey, and Eric again. That is where you can ask questions as we go, and you might have questions, you might not. If you do, my moderators will jump in to assist. They're very good at that. One of my moderators is a tried and true domain name expert. So you can ask anything about domains. All right. Let's dive in. I want to get you up to speed on domains. And I want to start with the basics. Specifically, what is a domain name? So a domain name is simply the address people type into their browser to visit a website. I want you to think of it like a business's street address, but online. Examples include joesplumbing.com. We're going to use that a couple times today, or siteswan.com. It's how people find your site and get to your homepage. Domain names are more than just a technical detail, though, because they actually help build credibility and trust. They're also easier to remember and share, and they can support your client's branding and search engine visibility. It's often one of the first impressions a business makes online, and that's why domain names are so important. Now, if you're new to the platform, you might be wondering what's the difference between a demo URL versus a domain name. When you first create a website on SiteSwan, we give you a demo URL. This is a temporary website address that's automatically generated by the platform and is used to edit or preview the site. I got an example for you right here. See how it's really long? This is not something you'll actually have a client put on their business cards. It's not a marketable thing, but it is something you'll use to share the site with a client before connecting their actual domain name. And when the client's ready to go live, you'll connect a custom domain, their branded public facing URL. Think of the demo URL as a draft and think of the domain as the final version that everybody sees. So, where can you purchase a domain name from? You can get one from pretty much any registrar. Yes, a registrar is the name of a company that will license or let you register a website domain name from. Common ones people have used: GoDaddy, Namecheap, Google Domains. That said, we do recommend cheapandeasydomains.com because it's affordable and easy to use, as the name might imply. Another benefit of purchasing a domain with cheap and easy domains is because so many people use it. If you ever have any trouble and need help, we are super, super quick and very, very familiar with that interface so we can resolve the issue even faster if need be. How much does a domain name cost? Well, it does vary by the registrar, but a lot of times domains will cost between 20 and 35 bucks a year. Premium domains, fancy ones with high demand keywords, they may cost more, but for most small business clients, a standard domain is all that they need. So that raises the question, well, who's going to pay for it? Should I pay for it? Should my clients pay for it? While that choice is totally yours, I'm going to tell you my personal recommendation, and that's that you purchase the domain name on your client's behalf. This makes setup so much easier and avoids back and forth. The last thing you want to do is make it difficult for a client to launch their site or slow down the sales process. And considering the low cost associated with domains, just absorb the cost into your monthly service fee. Don't try to nickel and dime your client by charging them an extra 20 or 35 bucks a year. The one exception to that rule would be if a client asks to purchase multiple domain names, then maybe you charge for all domains after the first primary one. When you purchase a domain name, you might be prompted with the option to purchase additional hosting or other add ons. Don't, because with SiteSwan, hosting and even SSL security are already included. All you need to buy is the domain name, and you can skip those extra upsells from the registrar. The only add on worth considering is privacy protection, which helps keep your client's contact info off of public records, which ultimately helps prevent spam. But sometimes that privacy is included anyway, depending on who you purchase from. There's also different levels of security you can check out as well. So you're going to find that many small businesses already have a domain name, especially if you're taking on a client that has an existing website. If that's the case and your client already owns a domain name, you can absolutely use it. Just follow the same steps to connect it, regardless of which registrar it came from. Now, if for some reason the client no longer has access to that domain, you can either work to help them reset their password or regain access to the domain. Otherwise, you could also just get them a new one. So, how do you pick a good domain name? When choosing a domain, I have a few tips for you. The first thing is to keep it short, easy to remember, and reflective of the business name. I would highly suggest that you avoid hyphens and numbers if possible, because people don't know, should I put the number in or should I spell it out? And I would suggest you include keywords like the location or the primary service the company provides. Always go with a .com when it's available. It's the most trusted extension. And here's a pro tip for you: when buying a new domain name on behalf of your client, research and find three, count them, three good available domain names and present the client with their three. How many? Three options. No more, no less, but three. This will make it very easy for them to make a fast decision. In those three, you're going to have one clear winner. It's the one that if you only told them that one, they'd probably be okay with. But it's much easier for someone to make a decision when they're presented with three and they simply choose one. So you'll say, hey, I found three really great domain names for your business. Here they are. Tell me which one you like best. They select the same one that you had your eye on. You go and secure it, and you're off to the races. Even if you're like, oh, these are two really good ones and I'm struggling to find a third, I don't care. Find a crummy third one, even if it's a throwaway. Present three options. My promise to you, you will not regret that. Once you've secured a domain, you'll need to connect it to the website. I am now going to switch my screen and demonstrate the process so you can see exactly what it's like to point a website domain live on SiteSwan. Are you ready? Let's jump in. So I am logged into Cheap and Easy Domains, and I'm going to go through this process exactly like we have on the video on support. Pay attention. Don't get intimidated. It's a lot easier than you think. First step, I'm going to find my domain name and I'm going to click on DNS. This is going to take me to access all my DNS records for this domain name. What I'm looking for first is an A record. So you'll see there's a type column. This is an A record type of record. And I am going to edit this. Now, we give you two IP addresses that you are going to utilize for this purpose. So I'm copying and pasting them from our support article right into the box. I have effectively made that change. I'm leaving this @ symbol and I'm clicking save. That's part 1 of 3. Let's do part 2. The rules state I have to have 2 A records. So I'm now going to add a second A record. Type is A, domain name is @, and the value I'm going to simply copy and paste from our support article again and click save. There we go. We now have done part 2 of 3. My third step is to find the CNAME record that is pointing to www. It's possible but unlikely that there is no CNAME record pointing to www. In that case, you're going to add a CNAME record that points to www. Okay? But since there is one here already, I'm going to scroll down and click edit. And then I'm going to change the value to domain.multisiteadmin.com. You can also copy and paste this from our support article if you'd like to make sure you don't make any spelling errors. If you do make a spelling error, it's not going to load. And just like that, I have effectively pointed this domain name live. Now, I want to also share with you the reason why we use 2 A records is because we go the extra mile and offer something called double redundancy, which is essentially a backup plan should one of the servers ever have an issue. The other one just jumps in and takes over for it. Now, while you will see some other settings, there are TXT records, MX setting, SOA, NS records, all these different records here. These can be safely ignored. Just so you know, TXT records are generally for domain authorization purposes. MX records are generally for email purposes. And I have no idea what SOA is even for. I don't know. Not important. They have zero impact on people being able to visit and see the site when someone types in the domain name. With me? All right. Let's see if I can get back in here. I can. All right. That's your demo. And by the way, if you want to scan this QR code, that should work. I tested this. That should work. Grab your phone, scan this. It'll take you right to our support article where we list the IP addresses and the domain.multisiteadmin, all the step-by-step instructions along with a video, and you are golden. If the website doesn't show up right away, do not panic. Domain propagation, which is the process of the domain servers getting changed across the internet, can technically take anywhere from 15 to 48 hours. Let me say that again. Can take anywhere from 15 minutes to 48 hours. So it is important to be patient. Now, after 48 hours, if it's still not working, I would highly suggest double checking the numbers in the IP address as well as the spelling of that long URL and make sure that it's correct. And if you're still stuck, reach out to the company you got the domain name from or our SiteSwan support team. We are skilled at problem solving in these types of situations. Now that we covered the basics of how to purchase and connect a domain name, let's review some advanced questions and topics that might come up, starting with what is a subdomain? Let me just make sure you guys aren't like hammering me with a question that I need to answer about this. Okay, cool. Cool. So, what is a subdomain? A subdomain is basically a secondary part of your main domain. So, using that Joe's Plumbing example again, it'd be blog.joesplumbing.com. Subdomains are great for organizing content like a blog or client portal without needing a separate domain name and having the expense associated with that and the trickery associated with having two domains that are similar, but one's to the website and one's somewhere else. Some businesses, if they have an e-commerce aspect to their business, will actually have an online store on a subdomain, like shop.businessname.com, usually because they're using a third-party service for that. This actually makes it really easy for them to migrate their site to you. You take over the core business website and then continue to link the subdomain for the e-commerce experience. You don't even have to touch that. Landing page is also a common need for a subdomain. So this is a few different situations you'll end up with. It's not super common. I would say probably one out of every, I don't know, 40 or 50 clients will actually even bring up the idea of a subdomain to you. But I just want to make sure you're equipped with that knowledge. And you might come across a client who asks if they can have multiple domains on one website. The answer is yes, you can have multiple domains point to and load one website. This is useful for brand protection, for catching typos, or just for owning both the .com and the .net versions of a domain name, for example. But it's important to note that only one domain name can actually be technically assigned to the site. All the others would need to get forwarded to that primary domain. This technology is called domain forwarding, and it lets you redirect one domain to another, kind of like a traffic light. For example, joesplumbing.net could forward to joesplumbing.com. This is easily set up in your domain registrar settings. And if you did ever have to do this, just follow their instructions for domain forwarding. You will not get lost. Let's cover another slightly more advanced topic, domain transfers. So a domain transfer is when you move a domain from one registrar company to another, or even from one account within a registrar to another account within the same registrar. Why would you do this? Reasons include consolidating domain management, so all domains are under one login at one registrar, simplifying billing so that the domains can be charged at the same time of year, or because of a client request or just their personal preference. You may also need to transfer a domain if to a client if they cancel your service and they want ownership of the domain name. When you initiate a transfer, typically takes 5 to 7 days, and it requires a special code, which is a long string of what seems like randomly selected numbers and characters, and it's called the authorization code or the EPP code. So that's what that is all about. Domains are typically purchased on an annual basis, although some registrars will try to push you to purchase 2, 3, or 5 years all at the same time. It's up to you or your client to make sure that they renew every year to make sure they don't expire. Because what can or might happen, especially if they're in charge of their domain name, I've had this happen to me, which is another reason why I suggest you buy domain names for your clients. It's 5 in the morning, you're getting a text from your client saying, what happened to my site? My site's down. What'd you do? What's wrong? And then you're in a panic because you're like, I don't know. What's wrong with the platform? What happened? I don't know. Did I do something? Meanwhile, their domain name expired because they didn't pay their bill, and the site comes down as a result. Nothing to do with our platform, purely to do with the fact they didn't pay their bill. But then you go into this mini panic for absolutely no reason, and that's not fun. So you want to make sure, especially if you're managing domains, don't let them expire. But it could happen to the best of us. If it expires, the site goes offline, although the demo URL will still work. That's important to know. They can still see the site. You can see the site. You can edit the site still. They just won't be able to access it on the actual domain. The good news is that most registrars offer a short grace period for renewal, even after it's expired. But it is best to avoid this altogether by enabling auto renew. It's a simple feature all the registrars have, and it really simplifies the process. This is also the reason why, again, buy the domain names for your clients. You will not regret it. Um, and think about it like this: like if you're asking your client to buy a domain, it's just one of the things they got to keep track of, right? Like they have enough small bills that they have to keep track of all the time. They could easily forget or miss a notification about it being past due or canceled. Meanwhile, if you're the one doing it, it's one of your core expenses, like my client domain is kind of a critical expense, and you won't um, look past those notifications. I'm sure of it. Now, here's a question we get sometimes related to domain names. Can I get an email address set up at my domain name? Now, while it seems like every small business already has an email these days, you might come into the situation where they want to set up an email with their domain, or maybe you're a new agency and want to secure an email with your own domain. While SiteSwan doesn't include email services, you or your client can use their domain registrar's email service or yours, or even a service like Google Workspace to create a professional email address. However, like I have a video on YouTube talking about, be careful about offering this service to your clients because it leads to this assumption that you're going to be their email IT person for the foreseeable future. If you do decide to help a client set up their email address, I would suggest you charge them extra for the setup. How much? Somewhere between $100 and $200 for the setup of up to 5 email addresses. You will not feel underpaid, I promise. Now, before we open this up for questions, I will leave you with a few final tips and quick reminders. I do see some questions coming in. First, every website should be connected to its own custom domain. Every client of yours gets their own custom domain. Next, purchase a domain for your client if needed and just absorb the cost in your monthly fee. Don't nickel and dime them. Third, use a trusted registrar. Again, we recommend cheap and easydomains.com. Do not fall for unnecessary upsells at the checkout. Always double check your DNS settings and your spelling by copying and pasting, making sure there's no extra spaces before and after. And don't forget, if you ever get stuck, SiteSwan support is always here. We're anxious to help. We've connected literally thousands of domains and are happy to do yours. If you need it, just say the word. I know I covered a lot in this session. We went through this kind of quick. Plenty of time for questions. Anything I can clarify for you? I see a few of you wrote in. I'm going to go through them now and see how we can help. All right. This is sort of related. I will answer it. Jason says, I have a couple of clients that I'm working with who have websites. So now when I hear that, it tells me they have a domain name already. Good. But they're outdated. They do not know who is doing the hosting or how to contact them to get the password to switch to SiteSwan. Any idea? I do have an idea, actually. Let me point you to a tool that I frequently use. It is called Whois. Whois.com. And in this box up here, you're going to type in the domain name for your client. And this is going to tell you where the domain name is registered. This will tell you the company, the registrar, whether it's GoDaddy, Cheap and Easy Domains, whatever, it's going to tell you where the domain is registered. That is ultimately the highest level that you will need to gain access. Now, sometimes, let me step a half step back. You asked about hosting, right? So, like the way it works is hosting is like the domain has to be pointed to the host in order for the hosting to work. Lots of times, the domain name is at a higher level with a different company, and it's pointing to the hosting solution. Sometimes the hosting company and the domain name company are the same. Because, like I stated before, there are domain registrars who will also offer hosting and vice versa. So, if that's the case, it's probably one and the same. You'll gain access to the domain, and then with that, you'll also see the hosting. When you do get access to that account, what you're going to do is actually cancel the hosting account after the new site is launched, because that's no longer necessary. then you'll be paying the provider only for the domain name. If the client has hosting somewhere else, unless it's hosting a different site altogether, something you still need, it can be canceled. You'll be able to save your client the money of having to pay hosting with whatever service provider they were before, and they'll only have to pay you on a monthly basis moving forward. Wendy says, if I am not physically with or they are not near their phone to send the verification code, it times out and I can't log in. This has been a frustrating part of moving domain names. So Wendy's referring to this relatively recent phenomenon of domain registrars selling a higher level of security, which requires that any little change made to their account requires a text message code being sent to the number on file so that they can then enter it in and get it validated. That's annoying. I agree, Wendy. So, the best technique that I have for you is to think about the time when you presented the homepage design to that client. You set up a day and a time to do it. So, I would basically do the exact same thing. Like, hey, listen, I want to get your site launched. I'm noticing you have a higher level of security on the domain name. I don't want to bug you throughout the day. What is a good opportunity for me to get 5 minutes of your time? You'll need to have your phone handy so that a code could be sent to it. You could read it off to me and we could bang through these changes. Just set up a time to go over it with them and you're good to go. Because I will admit that if you're going to rely on sending a text or calling your client every time you need a code, usually what happens is you need a code for every edit that you make. So that means that, well, first of all, just to log in, you might need a code. All right. So let's just say that's one. Then when you go to edit the first A record, that's two. When you go to add the second A record, that's three. And then when you go to edit the C name record, that's four. So to point one domain name live, you're basically going to have to get four codes sent to the client that you're going to need to type into a box. So that's just something to consider. All right. Jeffrey, this is a unique question. This is a very unique question. Jeffrey says, when I set up my account, I originally had a domain name with a I don't know the proper terminology for this, Jeffrey. What do you call that letter? What do you call that letter or the thing over the E? I don't, I don't know what to call it. I want to be able to help people. It's just an accent? Oh, all right. So somehow Jeffrey was able to register a domain name and in it was the letter E with an accent over the E. And technically it's a different character. All right. Let me just think about this for a second, Jeffrey. Can you clarify that you own that domain name with the accent over the E? And are you telling me that our system won't let you use it? I'm a little confused on what it could be. I mean, I guess it's possible our system won't acknowledge it, but that's not something we couldn't maybe work on fixing. I'd be really curious to know what you're up against here, Jeffrey. I'm gonna try and see if that domain with the accent was actually registered. Oh my gosh, you did. Oh, Jeffrey. All right, you changed it already? All right. Jeffrey, if all right, here's what I want you to do. If you want to use that domain name, submit a support ticket. Maybe there's something we could do to loosen our regulations on that and allow you to use an accent over an E in a domain name. I never heard it before. Never would have thought it was even doable, but I love this question. So if you want to use that domain name, if it didn't let you, uh, don't don't think you absolutely have to just get a domain name without it. I would love to see if maybe we can help you if you want the help. Okay. Just submit a support ticket, and we will look into it for you. Yeah, and I think Jeffrey's talking about his own site. All right, so here we go. Um, cool. All right, you already changed it. Perfect. Very good.